How are you all today? Boop, 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 boop. We have a decent bit. We have a decent amount to chat about because, whew, you know, the news always just gets crazier and crazier here in America. But, you know, let me take a sip of my coffee and then we'll get going. Meanwhile, read the headline behind me. Whew. Good morning, beautiful people. How are we all today? We're going to start out with some of the greatest hits. Kantisa, hello. Are you on a different account? Kantisa, hello. Hello. Yeah, so yesterday, fun little fact. Yesterday, I didn't budget my time well, so I didn't end up going live, mainly because I don't know what it was. I did a lot of preparations for today's live show. It looks different on my end, but that could just be me. Anyway, I did a lot of preparations for yesterday's show, and then all of a sudden I was like, crap, wait, I don't have time. I need to get to work. So that was kind of unfortunate, but today I don't have to go to work. So I'm really excited to be doing a longer show, and you all are awesome. I do have somewhere to be, in, what is it, about like 2 hours? Oh, yay! Okay. Yeah, it looked different on my end, Kantisa. Wait, is that a super chat? I'm still figuring everything out. I need to make sure and turn those on. But, all right. Whew. Let me get oriented here. Good morning, beautiful people. Why is that curl just doing that? We are going to start off. So today's live show is going to be a pretty extensive report. So happy Friday, everyone, first of all. Second, we are going to start out with some of the greatest hits of the week. I don't know if I want to call it that forever, but greatest hits are small little stories that are kind of just latest happenings within the Trump administration or latest political scandals or just the latest kind of drama happening, and then we'll do deep dives. So I wanted to start off with a couple of the greatest hits for, I don't know if I want to call it greatest hits, some of the biggest happenings that just occurred. So good morning, everyone. I see some people jumping in here. Also, I'm not as eloquent this morning, so please forgive me. Lisa, Kantisa, Cherie, hello. Good morning, Jason, Antonio. I love all of you so much. Thank you for subscribing, Kantisa. So we're going to start off with this. There is a controversy going around that just started. This happened yesterday. When you see this, what are you seeing? What are you seeing? I see 8647. I mean, it looks like it's pretty much that. I mean, when you look closer at this, maybe you could say that is an S, but I think it's an 8. 86, and then there's a tiny little bit of a space, 47. So, cancel his order. So when you see this, I mean, if for people who don't know, there is some symbolism behind stuff like this. And when you see that, you see 86, a tiny bit of a space, 47. I would say that it's at best naive because you might not know what this means. So what this means, it's very much interpreted as someone calling to 86 something. Have you ever heard of the term 86? Like 86 it. 86 it, I don't know where the number comes from, but it basically just means to throw out or get rid of. You can do that as in a naive little thing of 86 it, like we're not going to do that plan, or 86 it, just throw out that empty piece of that piece of trash, just 86 it. And 47 being Donald Trump is the 47th president of the United States. So James Comey, who is a guy who used to be the FBI director, I think he was, I don't know if he was, it's not in this term. It would have been in the previous Trump term between 2016 and 2020. I believe. I would have to double check that. But James Comey is a former FBI director. And he was apparently walking along a beach and posted this on his social media. And he said, cool shell formation on my beach walk. Now, you're like, well, Scott, why are you starting off with this? Well, 86, again, means to get rid of something. 47 is the, 47th president of the United States. They often call, Biden was known as kind of like the 46th. The first Trump term was the 45th, so it's kind of known as that. Now, here's the thing. You're not going to see me defending this. I can't stand Trump. Do I want him to be removed from office? Absolutely. He is so unqualified to be president. Though, if this was interpreted as an unaliving, then yeah, that's not okay. That's not okay. I can't stand the man, but that's not okay. But simply put, just imagine for a second that you had a Democrat, that you had someone on the Republican side, say 86-46. It would be so interesting because you know what immediately a lot of conservatives or these MAGA people would do? They would say, free speech. Free speech. Free speech. It doesn't mean that, it's just free speech. We'll get to that in a second. But to further dive into that situation here, asked by Fox News' Jesse Waters whether Tulsi Gabbard, the director of national intelligence, believed that Comey's claim, knowing that he didn't know the meaning of the slogan, in his post was associated with violence, Gabbard replied, well, absolutely not. That's ridiculous and an insane statement. Certainly in this context, especially from the guy who's the former director of the FBI. So just to kind of put it in context, again, 86 means to get rid of or toss out or kind of like nix the plan. 47 is also they call them like the 47th, the 46th, the 45th, president of the United States. So it's commonly known like, oh, what number are you as president? So the next president who will be elected in 2028 will then be known as the 48th. So that's how that works. That is hopefully if we have still the democratic process of elections, which I would hope that our democracy and our constitutional republic can maintain that. Anyway, so I want to bring up some critical thinking here. Of course, before I do, Donald Trump is saying this is unacceptable, blah, blah, blah. Let me whip out my Trump hands. Let me whip out my little Trump hands. I love all of you. Make sure to send some likes if you're enjoying the stream, okay? Make sure to send some likes. He knew what he meant. A child knows what that meant. Pause. I don't think every single child, I don't think children are going to generally know the term 86, like 86 it. It's not something that's super common. Maybe some kids will, but also many adults don't. Anyway, he's like, he knew what that meant. If you're FBI director and don't know what that meant assassination. Look. It's hard to know what it meant. Though, with any sort of action, if you say something and you didn't realize it was harmful, you can acknowledge the result of it being harmful, even though if that was not your intent. This is the thing. Conservatives some MAGA people can't understand. And maybe this example will actually help them. Even if you say something, there are still consequences to that. There are still consequences to that. If you say something that is homophobic, you can say, oh, freedom of speech. But that doesn't mean that you're free from the consequences of that speech. So then I thereby call you out. Say that you're homophobic. So it's the same with this. If he didn't mean anything by this, which again, just putting some what's the word? Faith in this. Let's say that he didn't know what the term 86 meant. You still have to atone for the damage that you cause. That all being said, notice how I am not the biggest fan of Trump. I make that very clear. I can't stand the man. Do I think he's a threat to democracy? Absolutely. Absolutely. Do I call him out for not knowing what the Declaration of Independence is? Not understanding that he has to uphold the Constitution? The dangers of him violating court orders? The absolute atrocities that his tariffs are causing? Yeah, I report on it all the time. About how, and I'm going to talk about more in the broadcast, all of his investments in the Middle East being a conflict of interest to actually running our country. Yeah, this guy is absolutely 100% positively corrupt. Though, you're not going to see Democrats defending this kind of behavior. Like, you're not going to see that. But what's so funny is, let's just say for a second that this was a conservative that said 86-46. You know what conservatives would immediately respond with? Let's say that it was, just for example, a sort of conservative, let's say that someone in the Trump administration said that about Biden. Let's say that someone in the first Trump administration, let me just throw out the name Peter Navarro. He was a Trump official. Let's say that Peter Navarro, for the sake of this example, were to do that. Don't you think that many conservatives would come back and say, oh, he didn't mean that. You could mean a lot of other things. Free speech. Tell me that I'm wrong. So here's the thing. You're not going to see me defending this because at best it's naive and ignorant. At worst, it is intentional. He could have thought it was just cute, but also he should have been smart enough not to post that as a former official within the federal government. That all being said, just think of it were the other way around. Think of it if it was the other way around. Where if this was a conservative saying this about Biden or Kamala Harris, would you come to the same conclusion? Would you come to the same conclusion if it said 86-46? Because here's the thing. I certainly would. I certainly would. I hope that you would too. Here's the thing. The biggest thing on my channel that I always drill into and talk about all the time is regardless of what's happening, regardless of the situation, regardless of who says it, or what it is concerning, the corruption of one or the other, make sure that you are principled enough, that you have a set of beliefs, you have a set of morals, you have an ideology, where if one person says it from one party and another person from another party says it, that you don't have different conclusions. If this coming from someone who's not a fan of Trump, if you're like, yeah, this is bad, great. Now let's say that this was coming from someone who's not a fan of Biden. Would you come to the same conclusion? The whole point of my channel, seriously, is to drill into the deep political psychology mechanisms that we use to form political attitudes. What I mean by that is that you come to the same conclusion. If it was Joe Biden that said that he didn't know if he had to uphold the Constitution, would you be just as outraged as if the fact that Donald Trump said that? The point is, I am calling on people to have a principle set of an ideology, a set of beliefs. My thing is, this is bad. I don't care the party of the person or their attitudes. If I see something that is wrong, I'm going to call it out. A spade is a spade. You see that? Someone said, no, you're not. I'm sorry if you can't listen. Plus, that's not the right you're, so good try. Many of you know, like, I am not at all a fan of Trump. I can't stand the man. He's a threat to democracy. Immediately right when there was that first assassination attempt, did you see me condoning political violence? No, because that's not okay. Now, what's also important to put in context is why someone might go to that extent. Maybe if you do super unpopular policy that leads to people losing their livelihoods, maybe that might get someone to snap. Same way with Luigi Mangione. That kind of political violence is not okay. They'll put it in context and understand the motivations behind it. Doesn't make it justifiable, but maybe you can learn from it and understand. So someone said, now the debate is, did he really mean it? Yeah, see, like, at best, that means that James Comey is maybe a little bit naive. At worst, it means that he means it. See, that's the thing. You're not going to see Democrats defending this, by the way. You know why? Because we're not. Typically, a lot more Democrats tend to have an ideology where it's like, that's right or wrong, or that's principle. Don't act upon convenient interest. Does that ever make sense? Do y'all understand what I mean? If you're understanding what I mean, just quickly type yes in the chat. Quickly just type yes in the chat. Quickly type yes. If you understand and you're on the same page about having an ideology, about regardless of who says it, that you call it out. I'm seeing people saying yes. Okay, perfect. Now I'm going to hide away the chat here just because I'm going to get further into my broadcast here. And again, if it were the other way around and it was some MAGA person that said 86-46, for the sake of a hypothetical, you would have many MAGA people, very likely, not all, but a sizable chunk, saying freedom of speech, freedom of speech, freedom of speech. It doesn't mean that. It could just mean impeach him from office. It could just mean to remove him from office. It might not mean eliminate. And that's also the thing. This might not mean to actually unalive. When you say 86 it. Well, that means kind of get rid of. But get rid of in what context? Could that be get rid of from office or get rid of from the planet? It's hard to know. That all being said, it's kind of, with it being ambiguous, you can read a lot into it. It's still not acceptable. So, but just entertain if this was the other way around. Would you come to the same conclusion? If it said 86-46, would you have the same conclusion? I would. Though I don't know if many conservatives, or many MAGA people would. Because their response might be freedom of speech, freedom of speech, freedom of speech. And let me just do a quick little deep dive into the idea of free speech today in America. Do you all remember back, this was like in March, early March, late February, when you had conservative Andy Biggs literally said, oh, we're doing a town hall, but then he closed it off. He said town hall, and they closed it off, meaning that only registered Republicans from that district could attend. And you're like, well, how does this have to do with free speech? Town halls are usually meant as a public forum in order to vocalize your frustrations or vocalize your concerns with your lawmakers. No Democrats or independents that were a part of that district were allowed inside. And you see here, please be advised that tonight's town hall is a private event. I've been reminded that only members of the Republican Party will be admitted into the venue. Why call it a town hall if it's a private event? That's just incompetent. That all being said, the reason why I'm bringing this up is because if you were thinking about freedom of speech doesn't protect you from saying something like you are intending to unalive someone. You could say, oh, well, free speech. Well, yes, if you yell fire in a crowded theater, you could say free speech, but you're going to be held accountable for literally leading to panic and starting a riot that would then lead, in this hypothetical example, to people being trampled, injured, and hurt. Now, again, if you say, oh, freedom of speech, and your freedom of speech is saying that you intend to do harm to someone else, yeah, there's going to be consequences to that. So, freedom of speech in America can be a little bit touchy. Now, again, going back to this, imagine if this was a MAGA person that said 86-46. They would likely respond with, well, you never know. It's free speech. Going back to the current reality, you're not going to see Democrats defending this. They're like, yeah, that's bad. Don't do that. That's not okay. The same way that when Donald Trump was almost pew-pewed by the first guy, yeah, you didn't see Democrats that were like, you didn't see them defending that. We can't stand Trump, but we also we have standards. We're like, yeah, that's not okay. Because what would that do? That would make us hypocrites. It'd make us hypocrites if we condone political violence towards our opposition, but then if it's political violence towards us, all of a sudden we condone political violence if it's towards us and then not condone if it's towards you. You see, that would make us hypocrites. Well, guess what? We're not going to do that. Anyway, so I just wanted to bring up that specific example. A lot of people are upset about it. I think that James Comey was probably just being naive, or maybe he did intend it, but either way, he kind of stepped in it. Even though he did issue an apology, which I will briefly put up here. He said, I posted a picture earlier of some shells I saw today on a beach walk, which I assumed were a political message. I didn't realize some folks would associate those numbers with violence. It never occurred to me, but I oppose violence on any kind, so I took the post down. Which he did. He did very quickly after it was posted. That doesn't mean that the harm is not there. But let's maybe use this example and learn from it. If you say something, let's take this at best that it was naive. If you say something that is homophobic, that discriminates against someone else, that is racist, that is sexist, that is tone deaf or ableist, and you didn't do it on purpose, cool. I'm glad you didn't intend to do it that way. But are there still consequences for that? Absolutely. I'll give you an example. One time, this was years ago, when I was in college, I had not met trans people. I am from North Carolina. I grew up in a bigger city, but in the suburbs, but I grew up in a very Christian conservative home. And I didn't know a lot of trans people in my own personal life. When I first met a trans person, I was very confused because I'm like, this is definitely different. Though I entered into conversation and it was really cool getting to know people, and I misgendered someone over and over. And they said, it's okay, just learn from it. Just learn from it. Apologize and learn from it. I felt eventually so bad. But the thing is, if you do something to offend someone else, or you do something to hurt someone else, you might not intend to hurt them. You might not intend to be harmful, but then you still have to atone for that. A good example is if you go over to someone's house and you accidentally elbow a beautiful glass vase off of the counter and it shatters on the floor. You say, oh, well, I didn't intend to do that, so I'm not going to clean it up. No, you still have to atone. You still have to clean it up. So what I'm saying is that intentions and impact both matter. You can't be someone that says oh, well, I didn't intend to be rude, so thereby I'm not held accountable. No, you still have to atone for that. So maybe this is a good example for some people that on the right that constantly are super rude and awful to trans people, gay people. Maybe you can see this and be like, yeah, he still has to atone for it. Okay, great. No one's going to complain about that. Maybe you can do the same when it comes to other ways that you harm people, if you happen to be someone that does that. Does that make sense? Does that make sense? It's also the intentions versus impact. I guess that makes me woke to talk about that. But I just wanted to bring that up. We cool? Awesome. By the way, if you're seeking to get my attention in the chat, don't bother, because I'm not even looking at it. So we're going to shift topics here. We're going to shift topics. Sorry, I thought someone was actually calling to me. I was like, what does this dude want? We're going to shift to another specific thing with Trump that I saw. So I was going through Donald Trump's Truth Social today, seeing oh God, what is this guy saying now? And I saw this post, and I found a Mediaite article talking about it. And he's apparent, I was so confused when I first read it, so why don't I just go ahead and read it? And while I was literally, I saw it And then I went back to research it more and stuff like that. Then I went back to Donald Trump's Truth Social and I saw another post that he posted like 5 minutes. The 5 minutes between my researching. This was before, gosh, I don't remember what time it was, but it was 5 minutes into it. He literally just posts, like, this is what occupies his mind. He said, has anyone noticed that since I said I hate Taylor Swift, she's no longer hot? What? Let me break some of this assumed language down. Has anyone noticed that since I said I hate Taylor Swift, that she's no longer hot? No longer hot according to who? According to whom? Like, this is the thing. This is what occupies their brain. And I'm like, God. And so I was literally going through and researching this like weird referee comment. And this is what I saw. And I'm like, oh my gosh. So we'll get back to that. But this is what Donald Trump said. The radical left sleazebags, which has no cards remaining in its illegal bag of tricks, is in a very coordinated manner playing the ref with regard to the United States Supreme Court. Okay, pause. We all know what a referee is, right? I'm not the biggest sports fan, but a referee is someone that upholds the rules, makes sure that the game is fair. You go through and you're very knowledgeable on the sport. Maybe you played it at some point. You go through and you enforce that. Now, referees can make sometimes bad calls, but that's why they're often also called out or they're supervised. But generally, referees are the ones that make sure the game is fair. So I live in North Carolina. My family, we are all big fans of the Hurricanes. We were watching the Hurricanes game last night. Referees can sometimes make bad calls. I don't think they really made any bad calls during that game. I don't really pay attention too closely, to be honest. But you see what I mean. So he is saying here that radical left sleazebags, which he says have no cards remaining in its illegal bag of tricks, is in a very coordinated manner playing the ref. So you're admitting that Democrats are attempting to keep things fair. They're playing the referee. They're making sure to try and uphold the rules equally against the teams in regards to the United States Supreme Court. So I immediately responded to this on my weird shadow account on Truth Social that has like 2 followers. It really isn't anything, but it's just cute. I said, so now we are against referees? The referees that uphold rules and make sure things are fair? Are referees woke now? Which, that was a little bit tongue-in-cheek, but still, like, when I read this, I'm like, huh? So I guess referees are bad. Well, of course, in Donald Trump's mind, he would think that referees are bad. Well, why? Because he doesn't like trying to play by the rules. It's rules for thee, but not me, when it comes to this guy. So it's just a little bit too obvious now. Anyway, also, if you're enjoying the live stream, please make sure to like the stream. I love all of you. I really, really do. Even if you hate me, okay? I appreciate and love every single one of you. If you are also new here, make sure to say hello and where you're tuning in from. I like to get to know people. Today is my day off, so I am just going to be leaning hard into doing content all day, and you all are amazing. So when I first saw this, I'm like, what? He's blaming Democrats for enforcing the rules, playing the ref in regards to the United States Supreme Court. And you'll say, okay, I get it, but like, what is he talking about? For those people who might not know, there is a big Supreme Court case that is going through right now. And it is in regards to Trump's executive order to end birthright citizenship. For those people who are like, well, what is birthright citizenship? You all know that in the United States, if you're born in the United States, you are automatically a citizen. Well, you know where that comes from? It comes from the 14th Amendment. The 14th Amendment literally specifically says that all persons born or naturalized in the United States are subject to the jurisdiction thereof and are citizens of the United States and the state where they reside. So the Constitution literally enumerates, spells out, all persons born in the United States are citizens and of the United States and a citizen of the state in which they reside. So I was born in North Carolina, so I'm a citizen of the United States and a citizen of North Carolina. Now, they want to end birthright citizenship for people who are undocumented that then have kids here. Disproportionately, that affects immigrants of color in regards to specifically anyone who is Hispanic or Latino. But it affects also all immigrants, though a good chunk of our immigrants today seem to be coming from countries that are south of us, whether it's South America or Mexico, like the whole South American continent, Mexico, Latin America, but also we have immigrants coming from all over the world. That all being said, the Supreme Court is hearing this case about trying to end birthright citizenship. The Trump administration put out an executive order attempting to get rid of birthright citizenship. And you'll say, well, wait, how can they do that? It says in the Constitution that anyone born in the United States is a citizen. Well, right. You say, well, how is he trying to do that? Because Donald Trump is going to try to do everything he can to get away with it. You're like, oh, well, it says in the Constitution that everyone born here is a citizen. Yeah, but you know those kinds of friends. They're not going to let whatever rules or fairness stop them. I mean, just because it's wrong or goes against the Constitution doesn't mean Donald Trump's not going to try. Same way with all these dictators throughout history. So, what does that tell you? What does that tell you? Also, by the way, do you like my carnation? Hi there. I recently was for my job. I sometimes deal with flowers for my job, and there were some flowers left over from Mother's Day, and I was like, oh. I brought home a carnation. Isn't it pretty? Isn't it pretty? Anyway, it's just in my car. That all being said, sorry, I looked down and I saw that and I'm like, oh, I have to share this. I love flowers. I just think they're nice. That all being said, there's this Supreme Court case that is trying to, that is going through figuring out if Trump's executive order trying to end birthright citizenship is constitutional. Well, guess what? The reason why it's gone all the way up to the Supreme Court is because at lower courts, 3 federal judges already blocked the policy nationwide, calling it legally indefensible. A quick little thing from my knowledge as a political science major is, let's say that we were to say that you can end birthright citizenship. Well, it's very possible that this would create a huge problem because then certain states would have different thresholds. So liberal justices were saying, okay, if the government eliminates birthright citizenship, then what you could do is you're going to you're warning that removing nationwide blocks would create a complicated, chaotic patchwork of legal standards across states. The beauty, but also the vice of America is the way that we have our government set up. We have federal governments and state governments. You know, there's overall federal rule, but then there's also state rule. If the United States decided to not go by a currency that all states use, that would be pretty bad. You know why? Because if we had different states having different currency, well, okay, 1 North Carolina coin, does that then equal 2 Virginia coins? Like, it can be really, really complicated. That actually happened in the past with stuff. When it comes to law, you have federal law, but then you also have state laws. Well, you could say, well, certain states have different circumstances that would then require them to be different from other states. Yeah, that makes sense. Certain states have the autonomy to regulate certain things, like their schools. But then federal laws, it makes it easier to have a mainstream that everyone has to follow. But you can also make it so mainstream that it doesn't make sense for everyone. That's what is called federalism. There is this struggle between federal policies, federal institutions, and state institutions. They're struggling trying to figure out which is best. I know I'm getting deep into some political science talk. The reason why I'm saying all of that in regards to Trump's post about these referees is because there's this case going through talking about trying to end birthright citizenship. Well, he is basically saying that the Democrats are they're playing the ref. They're playing the ref when it comes to the Supreme Court. So what he's saying Democrats are doing is trying to make sure that we uphold the Constitution. Because I don't think that's a bad thing at all. So when it's really, really fascinating when he is trying to insult people. It's like you're actually kind of making them seem like the heroes and you seem like the villain. So anyway, I saw that post and I'm like, this is just wild. He's basically like, oh my gosh, the referees are calling a play as it is. They're calling a play as it is, and I don't like that. I don't like that. You know, they say the ball was out of bounds. I say it was inbounds. It's one of the most inbounds balls I've seen. One of the most inbound balls I've seen. You know, it's crazy. These referees, they maybe they have cataracts. They have Trump derangement syndrome. So he's basically telling on himself that he's trying to break the rules and he knows it, and he's trying to make the people who uphold the rules bad. What does that tell you if you continue to support this guy? What does that tell you about what you're actually supporting? Put the shoe on the other foot. Read this as if it was from Joe Biden. The radical right sleazebags, which have no cards, Jack, remaining its illegal bag of tricks, and a very coordinated mayor is playing the ref with regard to the United States Supreme Court. They're trying to maintain the rules. They're trying to make sure that we follow the rules, Jack. I know, I don't have a good Biden impression. What this is basically saying is like they're going against referees, the people who uphold the rules. That's crazy. Anyway, one more comment. And then we're going to get to the main crux of today's live. One more comment that I was like, oh my God. Okay. You all know Kid Rock, right? Kid Rock? Well, he was on Jesse Waters' show. And he was literally talking about how he's concerned about the birth rate in America. Now, before I fully dive into it, America, right now, we don't have as high of a birth rate as we have. That is mainly because the cost of living has gotten so expensive that people don't want to have children. You could say, oh, well, children are little crotch goblins. That's what I like to say. They're kind of cute, little crotch goblins. Think about it. They're a crotch goblin. They come out of them. That all being said, children also come along with huge price tags. Raising kids these days is super expensive. Not only do you have to go through the schooling, do the extracurricular activities, making sure that they have everything that they need. I mean, even small things like Christmas presents can be sometimes a huge ordeal. That's extra money you have to set aside. Think about whether they want to go to college or do schooling or certain programs. It can be a lot. That all being said, children are also huge price tags. There are certain countries, Scandinavian countries, that actually pay women and people to actually raise children, and that's kind of their job. I don't know how they enforce it too very much, but there's the idea that like being a homemaker is also very notable. You know what I just realized? I always do my live streams in my car, and there is this dead bug that is right at the top of my windshield. My car is typically pretty clean, but I totally forgot about this dead bug, and so it's just been sitting there. It's a dragonfly, and I'm like, oh. It came in and just hung out with me one day, and it never left. It never left. Anyway, it's so funny because I'm like looking at it, and it's like, I didn't see it until I went all the way up here, It's just hanging out there, man. Anyway, so we do have a lower birth rate than normal, but that's also because children are super expensive. Do you have extra cash to spend in this economy? Especially now with the tariffs and with everything happening, economic uncertainty? Yeah, no. But like always, Fox doesn't get to the underlying problem. They like to then go some weird cultural route to condemn woke people or blame people that look different as their way of trying to call attention to that. Like, so this is also just super disrespectful and rude. Kid Rock, America has low birth rate because ugly ass liberal women. You know what's so funny? I think it's funny when men constantly assert that, oh, the reason why we have a low birth rate is that women don't want to, women aren't attracted to us, or, you know, they're just not pretty or whatever. It's like, now, first off, I'm gay, so I don't know anything about trying to get with women or anything like that. Get with women, that's not me. That all being said, how about we ask women why they don't want to have children? How about we ask people with the capacity for pregnancy why they don't want to have kids? Because we're still living through a time where women are going through, they still are not paid as much as men are for certain positions. There's still the idea of trying to break the glass ceiling. So a lot of women are focused on their careers. They're focused on their nature for self-growth or their liberation as well. Sometimes that can come at the expense of wanting to raise kids. Just because that societal expectation is thrust upon women doesn't mean that they have to uphold it. And it's funny, he's like, oh, the reason the birth rate is low is because of ugly women. How about you ask women why they don't want to give birth? Why don't they want to do that? It's like you're assuming instead of asking. So during the interview on Thursday with the 54-year-old musician, who was briefly married to Pamela Anderson in the 2000s, Fox News host Jesse Waters played a clip of a group of liberal protesters and asked, when you play your concerts, do you ever see anybody with blue hair, armpit hair, female armpit hair? This is just, God, it's just so gross. Like, dude, you call yourself news? Anyway, some of these people were looking at Kid, I don't know. These people are just weird and creepy. And so Kid Rock then says, listen, I was just watching your clips, and you know, we have this low birth rate in America, and it all makes sense. It just hit me right now because who's gonna sleep with these ugly ass, broke, crazy, deranged, TDS liberal women? Here's the thing. Let me shed some light. As a gay guy, I am friends with a lot of women, okay? There are a lot of women out there who don't want to sleep with men that have abhorrent positions when it comes to social democracy, social rights for gay people, for women, for people of color, for disabled people. There are a lot of women who are turned off by the uber toxic masculinity that comes especially from MAGA men. They don't find that attractive. They don't find it attractive that you're trying to constantly prove yourself as some super like patriot, where you're actually bigoting the form of what patriotism is. But also, like, many women, they don't want to be with a guy if they're homophobic. Many women don't want to be with someone that is disrespectful towards trans people. Many women are not going to find it attractive if you are constantly obsessing over the Trump cult. There might be some women that fall for it. Cool, whatever. I'm not going to speak on behalf of all of them. But also, a lot of women have gay friends. So if you literally are homophobic, you're not going to get laid. I'm not going to pretend like I know much about that. I don't know anything about it. I'm very gay, okay? I don't know what it's like trying to have sex with women. It's not something I'm ever interested in. That all being said, what I do know is that you disrespect gay people. If you're a guy trying to get with women who have gay friends, you disrespect the gay friends, they're not gonna like you. They're not gonna like you. And one thing is, a lot of women love their gay friends. Just saying. So this weird obsession is also just creepy. It's creepy, and it continues. I mean, you look at these rallies, it's like a bunch of women that no guy wants to sleep with and a bunch of dudes that want to sleep with each other. Oh, well, you know, I want to go to those rallies then. It's just cringy. This is what the right-wing media does all day. They're like, look at that blue-haired liberal woman with a nose ring that goes by Kiki and uses they, them pronouns. Oh my God. How about we talk about the cost of living? How about we talk about the rights guaranteed to everyone within the Constitution? How about we talk about the gun violence epidemic or the cost of prescription drugs or the need for affordable housing? Like, why are you obsessing over a weird blue-haired liberal woman with a nose ring named Kiki? Like, and it's just disturbing. It's just disturbing. So when you see stuff like that, it's just crazy. Now, I've not been looking at the comments at all. I'm wondering if I even should. I'm seeing a lot of deleted messages. Got some trolls in here. But it's just funny, like, the real reason why our birth rate is so low is that kids are expensive. It's not because, like, oh my gosh, these ugly ass liberal women. No, kids are expensive. And also a lot of women and people with the capacity for pregnancy, I'll tell you why I say that in a second, are not having kids is because it's expensive, but they're also focusing on their aspirations, their careers, their dreams, their goals. Their goals might not be to have a child. It might be to advance in their career. Like, so anyway. Also, for those people who are like, why do you use the term women and people with the capacity for pregnancy? Let me tell you why. So there's a difference. There are women, of course, women make up the majority of people who give birth, but there is a small but sizable group of people who are transgender, and non-binary that have the anatomy that makes it possible to give birth. Okay? So you have people who are transgender and people who are non-binary. Again, non-binary basically means that regardless of your anatomy, that you don't necessarily see yourself as male or female. What it means is that socially you kind of just do your own thing, which is cool. When it comes to, there's also people who are intersex. When it comes to, it is very, very transphobic for me to only say that women are the people with the capacity for pregnancy, because that's just bigoted, but also objectively incorrect. There are transgender people, trans men that have the biological anatomy to be able to carry a pregnancy to term. They call them seahorse daddies. And you're like, wait, what? I encourage you, if you truly don't understand transgender people, go and listen to stories and listen to what their experience is like. Now, it's also important to note, it's a small subsect of the population, but it's also a part of the population. So the reason why I say women and people with the capacity for pregnancy is because there are also women that don't have the capacity for pregnancy. And I say capacity because it's not like if you have the ability to, that you have the responsibility to. Does that all make sense? So the reason I say women and people with the capacity for pregnancy is to point out that most people who have the capacity to be pregnant are women, but also that there are people who identify as trans or non-binary that have the ability to carry a child to term. It's not coming at the expense of anyone to be that kind of inclusive. And I give credit where credit is due. The person who initially came up with that phrasing was Ana Kasparian, who I'm not the biggest fan of Ana Kasparian. As a little side note, I used to be a part of TYT before they did that. But she was the person who initially came up with that, so credit where credit is due. But it's important to talk about how you have the majority of people who can carry a child to term are women, but also there's a subset of the population that are trans, non-binary, and intersex that have the ability, the biological capacity to do that. And if you call those people women, technically you're objectively incorrect, and you're also being very tone deaf and bigoted. Does that all make sense? It's not hard to figure out, and if you truly do have questions, ask them in good faith. Also, trans people just literally want to be respected. So if you can't do that, then you're literally going against what Jesus talks about, loving your neighbor as yourself. Just saying. That all being said, let's shift topics here. Let's shift topics here to talking about Donald Trump, and in regards to his bribery. You heard me right, bribery. So it's no secret that Donald Trump is someone super obsessed with, you know, certain... It's no secret that Donald Trump is like, put the US up for sale, is what I mean. He has a lot of dealings in the Middle East, and he is also very concerned about optics. This is a lot of what I was going to talk about yesterday, and we're going to do a deep dive into the whole situation with Qatar, with the plane, with the bribe. Even right-wing media is calling him out in some instances, which credit where credit is due. I'm going to tell you about all of that, as well as some of Donald Trump's investments in the Middle East, whether that's the UAE or Dubai. So we're going to talk all about it. Trump grumbles as Air Force One looks puny, parked by Arab leaders' planes. It's much less impressive. It's much less impressive. I talked about this on Wednesday. Look, the fact that Donald Trump's obsessed with plane size is just silly, but also, like, everyone knows size doesn't matter. Well, some people do. It matters to some people. I know people who call themselves size queens. I'm not gonna dive too deep into that. I'm a gay guy. I know some people who like to call themselves size queens. That all being said, to me, it's about how you use it. Okay? If you got something, it's really about how you use it. Okay? That's just me. You can have a different interpretation, opinion, it's fine. But the fact that this is his priority is like, I landed and I saw other people's planes, and let me tell you, my plane was less. It was puny, it was smaller, maybe it wasn't as, maybe it, you know, didn't have as much of a hard exterior, but let me tell you, my plane looked kind of puny next to these other ones, and I want the big plane, I want the biggest plane, I want the plane that everyone talks about, I want the plane that is all over that everyone is just envying for. So, as Donald Trump flew to the Middle East, he literally was complaining about his plane size. What does that say about the current president of the United States? Is this his priority? So, his priority is talking about plane size. He said, and when you land, let me get my hands, and when you land in Saudi Arabia, and you see the United Arab Emirates, you see Qatar's plane, and you see all of these, they have brand new Boeing 747s mostly, and you see ours next to it, and this is like a totally different plane. It's much smaller. It's much less impressive as it is. We are the United States of America, and I believe that we should have the most impressive plane. He's complaining about plane size. That's just silly. That's just silly. Put for a second that this was Joe Biden. They'd be like, wow, what an elitist. Wow, that's really tone deaf. Someone who likes to claim that they're for the working class and care about people. And then all of a sudden Trump does it. Oh, you know, that's very valid for him to want a huge plane like that. It's very valid for him to want a huge plane. It literally makes you less relatable. Anyway, he goes on to say, some people say, oh, you shouldn't accept gifts. You shouldn't accept gifts for the country. Shouldn't accept gifts. My attitude is, why wouldn't I accept the gift? You know, they gave me a big Trojan. They gave me a big horse. They gave me a big horse. It was huge. Let me tell you, I saw it and I just wanted to ride it. I saw the horse. It was wooden. Knock on wood. Dink, dink, bing, bong, bing. And I saw it and I was like, why wouldn't I take this thing? Why wouldn't I take it? So I took it into my castle. And they opened it up and all of a sudden these people all came out of the horse. I said, that's horse crap. Let me tell you, that's horse crap. This plane is obviously a bribe. Why? Because it's set to be transferred to Donald Trump's personal presidential library after he leaves office. It's a bribe. Also, why do you need a big new plane? Also, I didn't actually prepare for this part of the live stream. I didn't actually prepare to report on this segment, though there have been some reports out of Forbes and Chris Hayes specifically talking about how the market for planes like this is actually very narrow, because a lot of people who can afford these kinds of planes will just have their own custom designed plane. So Qatar was kind of trying to get rid of this thing because they didn't really have anyone to give it to. So I find that to be also kind of fascinating. So Donald Trump is upset about his plane size, and he's upset that his attempts at trying to justify being bribed are not working with the public. So the U.S. has kind of given them gifts. It's called national defense and security. He's saying, so we have given gifts to all the other countries in the form of national security. So it would only be fair if we take a gift from them. You can't make this stuff up, people. You can't make this stuff up. And let me go forward here. So you remember how back on Tuesday, or was it Wednesday? Forget. Remember how I said that the right is now going to start using the specific defense, that there are BS examples? Was I not correct? I don't want to be an I told you so. But was I not correct when I said that as soon as this Donald Trump reposted this, that his cultists would start repeating it ad nauseum? So in response to Donald Trump being confronted about being bribed by Qatar, taking this plane for his own personal use to be transferred into his presidential library, once he leaves office, hopefully once he leaves office, there were a lot of people that were trying to justify. They couldn't defend the bribery allegations. So they're like, you know what? Let's find an example where we can say that other people did it in the past. Oh, well, other presidents have accepted gifts. Let's talk about the psychological mechanism behind that first before we dive into their BS comparisons. The fact that when Donald Trump was confronted about being bribed, that he was saying, it's not a bribe, it's for the American people, even though it's literally said to be transferred to his own presidential library. It's not working. Not even for some of the Trump cultist people. Like, people like Ben Shapiro, who is one of those ringleaders within right-wing media, even was like, dude, this isn't a good idea. Which credit where credit is due. That all being said, there was one maniac that came up with this weird nonsense comparison using the Resolute Desk and the Statue of Liberty. You may have heard about this kind of stuff. I believe it was on Wednesday. I said, this is going to be the defense that they use ad nauseum. Was I not correct? And when you actually look at this faux comparison, you'll realize how absurd it actually is if you know the history behind the Resolute Desk and the Statue of Liberty, which I'll dive into here. But please make sure to send some likes. I love all of you. I feel like I've also been all over the place with today's live, so I apologize if I'm not as eloquent as normal. Also, if you're new here, make sure to say hello and where you're tuning in from. I like to get to know people. That all being said, Donald Trump was like, hold on, I need a sip of coffee. Yes, I'm drinking Starbucks today. Don't hate me. The fact that he is trying to use a whataboutism as a defense is also very telling. So, because the Trump people can't defend themselves against the obvious facts that they're being bribed, that Donald Trump is being bribed, they try to equate it to, oh, well, it was accepted in the past, so why is it not accepted now? This is a psychological mechanism that happens quite a lot. So when the existing person is in power, someone, this person is in power, when someone from your political party is often in power and they do something that is corrupt, sometimes, regardless of your political affiliation, but oftentimes it happens with conservatives, when they're called out on obvious corruption, they'll say, oh, well, you did it. Oh, well, you did it in the past. You did it in the past. So it's okay for us to do it now. But also, that doesn't mean that it's okay. Also, them saying you did it in the past, they could just be coming up with something completely false. They'd be coming up with some weird nonsense comparison in order to justify current corruption. Oh, well, you were corrupt in the past, so why can't we be corrupt now? That is a shift from just blatantly defending awful stuff, but it's a shift that could lead to deprogramming these Trump people. But to the point, let me show you the examples. Also, mods, how are we doing in the chat? I appreciate every single one of you. I appreciate every single one of you. I know I've been all over, but I hope that this is helpful. In regards to Donald Trump being confronted about taking the bribe of the plane from Qatar, he reposts at 4 a.m. his time in the Middle East, this one person, Roberta Abby Wallace, who says to everyone complaining about this gift, how about, like the whataboutism, how about the Resolute desk, aka the Hayes desk, that was gifted to President Hayes from Queen Victoria in 1880? Or what about the Statue of Liberty, which was gifted from France in 1886? Be truthful. It's only because it is President Trump that you are spewing your idiocy. The plane is not Trump's. It is a gift to America. Pause. First off, the plane is set to be gifted to Donald Trump at the end of the presidency, at the end of his term. It would be transferred into Donald Trump's personal presidential library. Why would you need a plane in a library? Maybe for his own personal use? Also, with the amount of upgrades that they would need to do, there wouldn't be much time for Trump to be using it for the time that he's in office. That all being said, it would then be like purchased by the United States. He'd only use it for a short amount of time before it's transferred to his presidential library for his own personal use. It's a bribe. But also, let me quickly cover something called the Emoluments Clause. Are you all familiar with the Emoluments Clause? The Emoluments Clause specifically talks about how, and this is Article 1, Section 9, Clause 8 of the Constitution. It specifically says in here that all right, legal speak, are we ready? No title of nobility shall be granted by the U.S., and no person holding any office of profit, trust, shall, without the consent of Congress, accept any present, emolument, office, or title of any kind from any king, prince, or foreign state. Now, you might have heard me read that and you're like, well, what does that all mean? That's a lot of words. What it's basically saying is that no person holding office shall accept, without getting the permission of someone from the House of Representatives, people from the House of Representatives or the Senate, to accept any sort of gift, emolument, or big bribe from any king, prince, or head of a foreign state. What that basically means is that you can't accept a big gift unless Congress gives you permission. Now, Congress has indicated that they're not planning on giving permission, because Democrats obviously are like, yeah, that's crap. But also many Republicans are like, this is a little bit much, even for us. To their credit, to all the conservatives that are like, yeah, this is not okay. Credit to y'all. Thank you. I'm glad that you're seeing this. See, like, that's the kind of teamwork. When we see corruption, we call it out jointly together. Doesn't matter who it is. Doesn't matter who it is. Okay? Because if it was Biden that did this, conservatives would be up in arms. And even them were acknowledging that. And I'm like, yay, progress. Because, like, just imagine if Biden tried to literally do this. You would see you might have a small subsection of Democrats that would defend it. But, like, Democrats would not be defending that. They'd be like, dude, what? No. That's, like, do your job. Like, don't focus on trying to get a plane. Anyway. So, the Emoluments Clause basically stops our government from accepting bribes from heads of foreign state unless Congress gives permission. And just to fully tie in, emolument basically means like a bribe. Dictionary.com and Merriam-Webster talk about the arisings from office or compensation, from employment, profit, salary, stuff like that. It basically just means a bribe. And so Congress, hypothetically, Congress could approve this and get it, but then you're not even talking about the national security concerns. Getting a plane from a foreign power that has also been tied to terrorism would jeopardize national security. You would have to undergo a lot of money to retrofit this plane, but also you might not get rid of all of the bugs. It's very possible that they would bug the plane, and then who knows, they could just push a button and all of a sudden it blows up with our president in it. Now, I'm not a big fan of the president whatsoever, though that would be a bad thing for our country, right? So anyway, that all being said, Donald Trump one of his people saw this nonsense comparison, was like, oh, maybe we can use this to defend the obvious corruption. They said to everyone complaining about the gift of the Qatar plane being used as a bribe, what about the Resolute desk, or what about the Statue of Liberty? Let me do a quick little deep dive into those two things. If you've watched National Treasure, you might have heard something about all of this. Though, if you haven't, let me tell you about it. If you know, this is something that I wrote in response to this person on Truth Social. I said, if you know anything about the history, timeline, and financing of the Resolute desk and the Statue of Liberty, you wouldn't make this absurd comparison. Let's talk about the Resolute desk. So they were saying, oh, this is like the Qatar plane, so you didn't say anything about it then. The Resolute desk, also known as the President's desk in the Oval Office, was a gift from Queen Victoria to the United States as a way of the UK, the United Kingdom, thanking the US for the rescue of the British ship, the HMS Resolute. So the ship, HMS Resolute, was used in an expedition and lost to the Arctic and recovered by an American whaler, and then thereby returned to England as a token of goodwill. So basically, you had the UK led this expedition with the HMS Resolute. It ended up being lost into the Arctic, abandoned. An American whaler came upon it and was like, oh, well, this doesn't belong to us. Why don't we give it back to Britain? We found your lost ship. Here you go. And in a token of goodwill, they're like, thank you for doing that. Let's make some ships, or let's make some desks from the ship, and we'll give one of the desks to the President of the United States saying thank you. And so, in a token of goodwill, it was then thereby returned to England. The desk was then constructed from the ship's timbers and presented as a gesture of appreciation, not as an attempt to influence any official actions. This is the thing. With Donald Trump's Qatar plane bribe, it's in exchange for investment into the Middle East. I'll show you all the different investments of Trump hotels, golf courses, all of that crap that's happening in the Middle East right now. It's no coincidence that Donald Trump went to the Middle East he's like, oh, I went there for America. No, he's going there for himself, because they're unveiling numerous projects of Trump resorts, hotels, and all of this across the Middle East. He's basically turned the office of the president into a big for sale sign. If this was a Democrat, I'd be just as absurd. It's awful. So when people are trying to compare that situation with the plane to the Resolute desk, that is so silly. This is the picture of the Resolute desk itself. There's actually 4. So there's the Resolute desk. There is the the Queen also has, I believe, one of the desks. And then there are two others, and I don't remember where they are. But again, this is on the White House website. So let me also just point that out. This is on the White House website, the White House Historical Association. Now, that's not a part of the government, I do not believe. But what is just so funny is, like, the White House Association literally is going against what Donald Trump, the current president in the White House, is saying. It says in here, again, literally what I spelled out, that the HMS Resolute was a ship abandoned, recovered by an American whaler. Then, as courtesy, they made desks out of the timbers of the ship and gave one of them to the United States. A bribe is when you do something or get something in exchange for actions. Donald Trump is being bribed with this plane for investment in the Middle East, to the tune of a big resort 40 minutes north of Doha, Qatar. We'll talk about that in a minute. But let me get to the example this is the picture of the HMS Resolute. Sorry, my green screen's awful. You can go and learn all about it. It's actually fascinating. Even the AI overview actually gets this right. I literally said, no, was the Resolute desk a bribe? It said, no, it was not a bribe. And it literally goes through and talks about it. Now, the other one that Donald Trump is trying to say is, oh, well, what about the gift of the Statue of Liberty? What about the Statue of Liberty? That was a gift. Yeah, but it wasn't a bribe. There's a difference between a gift and a bribe. A gift is when you're doing something out of a token of goodwill to say, like, I appreciate you. And by his own theory, if you were to get Christmas gifts, are they all Christmas bribes? No, a bribe is when you give someone something in return for some sort of deal. Okay? If I get a present for my brother, it's not so that I can get something in return. There's a difference between a gift and a bribe. That all being said, we'll get to the bribe in a minute, but they're like, oh, well, the Statue of Liberty was a gift to the United States. Why don't you want to accept the gift of the Qatar plane? Because that one's a bribe. This is genuinely a gift. And if you knew anything about the history of the Statue of Liberty, you wouldn't make that absurd comparison. So let me dive into the Statue of Liberty. The history of the Statue of Liberty here. The Statue of Liberty was also not a bribe of any kind either. In fact, the statue was jointly financed between the United States and the government of France. The U.S. paid for the pedestal, which Lady Liberty stands on, also known as Columbia, and the project had several delays and was eventually constructed. The main architect behind the project was Edward de la Boulaye, who was a great admirer of American democracy and sought fit to design and build the Statue of Liberty in America to represent the U.S. overcoming the American Civil War. After the Union defeated the Confederacy, deciding to outlaw slavery, La Boulaye hoped that this momentum would lead to then forward reforms in his own country of France. So basically, of course, you have all these Trump people being like, no one was yelling corruption, the Statue of Liberty was a gift from France. You see all these Trump people literally repeating what Trump says. They don't have a critical thought of their own. They don't have a critical thought of their own. You say, Rutherford B. Hayes didn't take the Resolute desk when he left office. Grover Cleveland. Oh, no, this is actually someone pointing out Rutherford B. Hayes didn't take the Resolute desk with him when he left office. Grover Cleveland didn't take the Statue of Liberty with him when he left office. But Donald Trump is set to take the Qatar plane with him after he leaves office. So, the Statue of Liberty, the history when it comes to this was that the person who designed it was a great admirer of American democracy. And there was actually public and private investment into the building of the Statue of Liberty. Fundraising and bringing people together have always been integral to Lady Liberty's history. It began with efforts to finance this unprecedented undertaking. France would be responsible for creating the statue and assembling it in the United States, while the American people would fund and build the pedestal. To raise funds in France, public fees, various forms of entertainment, and lottery were used. in the United States to finance the pedestal, benefit theatrical events, art exhibitions, auctions, and prize fights were held. Does that sound like a bribe? GoFundMe style activism in order to actually have the funds to do Lady Liberty? No. It's not like the French government doled out all of this money, said, here, we'll build this statue, we'll give it to you, and in return we want this. There was never any sort of exchange like that. It was joint fundraising in order to build this statue for the purpose of it representing freedom. Let me also add something to the history of the Statue of Liberty that people might not know. Again, I can't believe that President Trump's accepting a gift from another country. This has never happened before in American history that has the Statue of Liberty. Again, the Statue of Liberty was not a bribe. It was jointly financed between two countries. It was something that they pulled, they did all these theatrical events, art exhibitions, prize fights in order to jointly fundraise for it. This is why I get so frustrated with these MAGA people, because they don't have a critical thought of their own. They don't have a critical thought of their own. If they knew anything about how some of this actually worked, they wouldn't realize how absurd it is. But I don't think that some of them actually realize how absurd what they do is. Anyway, so the Statue of Liberty, also known as Lady Liberty, which this person posted this here. I thought this one was kind of funny. The Statue of Liberty is also known as Lady Liberty, also known as Columbia. So Columbia is kind of a it's kind of a person within American, American, I don't want to say ethics. It's been, how the Columbia Entertainment, the company that has Columbia Entertainment, and they have the little pre-roll before like a sort of film or a TV show, and it has Columbia, and it's a lady kind of similar to the Statue of Liberty holding something. Lady Liberty is also known as Columbia. Columbia is used in a lot of art to display American like, oh gosh, what's the word? I don't want to say legends or ethics. Maybe it's art. Columbia is also the lady that you see in that famous painting talking about Manifest Destiny. Which, Manifest Destiny, for people who are like, wait, I've heard that. I heard that in history. Manifest Destiny was the idea that white colonial settlers were destined to expand westward, going from the East Coast to the Midwest to then the West Coast, with the idea of conquering more land because it was their destiny to expand American democracy. But also, Manifest Destiny was also like, okay, freedom for the white people, but freedom for no one else, because they displaced a lot of Native American people from their land. In that photo, in that famous painting, I wish I had a picture of it to show you, the white woman that has like the flowy dress is also the same woman that often they depict in the Statue of Liberty, known as Columbia. So, fun little fact for you, which I didn't realize until I was doing my research. So, with all of this being said, it's just crazy how all of these MAGA people, they're making this insinuation, but that's literally because Donald Trump reposted this and now they all sound like robots, saying the same thing. They don't have a critical thought of their own. They don't. And if they knew the actual history behind it, they wouldn't make that kind of assertion. It's crazy. So, going to talking about the current bribery of Donald Trump, let me actually show you. So, oh wait, hold on. Where was it? Where was it? Where was it? Hold on. Oh, geez, where'd it go? Where did it go? There we go. A bribe, which Trump is currently receiving, comes with a favor in return, which we already see in the form of investment in a Trump resort and amusement park 40 minutes north of Doha in Qatar. So let's talk about some of Donald Trump's investments in the Middle East now. I know I've been all over the live today, so I appreciate y'all weathering the storm with me. You may have heard that Donald Trump is actually set in that the Trump businesses are set to open a big resort 40 minutes north of Doha in Qatar, also known as Qatar. I didn't realize that you could say it in both ways. So they're giving Donald Trump this plane as a bribe in exchange for investment. Let me give you some more details about it. The site of the new Trump resort is set to be 40 minutes north of Doha, near Simasima Beach. I don't know if I'm saying that right. And it's set to be a big, like, international golf course, villas, all of that. It's set to be this huge facility. And this isn't the only one. This isn't the only one. Also, it's quite normal, actually expected, that presidents divest all of their business interests from themselves and their family before they go back into office. Donald Trump didn't do that this time. He's still very active businessman. He's a very active businessman, even though he's president. You can't, to me, maybe call me archaic, maybe call me old-fashioned, but I think if you are in a position of public service, you shouldn't be trying to privatize or function as a business, because that means that you have conflicts of interest against the will or the security of the people you're supposed to be protecting. The idea of like, oh, America first. No, it is Trump business first. That's what it really is. He likes being president, and this is my analysis. You can disagree. He likes being president for the whole grandiose nature of it being a public position, but he also likes using the office of the presidency for his own gain. I guess for a lot of people who voted for Trump, the hatred of immigrants enough or the demonization of trans people was worth their vote. But at what cost? At what cost for them? Economic uncertainty and lots of tariffs. And now we're all suffering. Anyway. So there's set to be a big first real estate project in Qatar for Donald Trump. And it's just like the bribery and the corruption is so obvious. The 5.5 billion Simasima Beach Trump Resort International Resort development led by Qatari DR is designed as a 7 km long mega entertainment resort district anchored by an 18-hole golf course and a Land of Legends theme park. And Wednesday's deal will come amid a visit to the Gulf by Eric Trump, the son of President Donald Trump, and a Trump Organization executive. Eric Trump told Reuters on Tuesday that the Gulf region is dependent on a strong U.S. And just put in for a second that this was Biden. Let me also get to some of these people's responses. So, yeah, this is important. The surveillance and security aspects also of getting that plane from Qatar is a huge concern as well. 100%. Where was it? Where was it? At least that's not what I wanted to look at. What was it that I wanted to look at? There's so much here. Oh, you know what's so funny? There was one person that says, there's no official information from primary government sources, White House, Department of Defense, or Qatari government confirming that President Trump is planning to accept a Boeing jet from Qatar. This is literally back on the 11th. Donald Trump literally has talked about it himself. Is that primary enough for you? So I want to actually show you some investments that Trump has going on. This is something that hasn't gotten as much attention. We all know that he is investing in a big golf resort in Qatar, but he's also doing stuff in Dubai. Dar Global and the Trump Organization launched Dubai's new icon, Trump International Hotel and Tower. This is the thing. He didn't go to the Middle East for America. He went to the Middle East to serve himself. That's what he did. The reason why he's so chummy now with all these people in the Middle East is because it's benefiting him. He wants their planes, he wants their money, he wants their real estate. He was bribed in exchange for investment, which means that anyone, this is a huge national security risk. Anyone who's willing to bribe our president, jingle the dangly keys, Trump is going to be like a baby and grab them immediately. Our presidency is up for sale. This is how it works. So let me also share, Dar Global and the Trump Organization launched Dubai's new icon, Trump International Hotel and Tower. And this is set to be in Dubai. The new icon is set along Sheikh Zayed Road at the entrance of downtown Dubai with exclusive views of the Burj Khalifa, which is the big, tallest building in the world, and also the sea. So the landmark project marks the Middle East's first and only Trump International Hotel and Tower, and represents the 5th collaboration between Dar Global and the Trump Organization, and building on the success developments such as Tower Jeddah in Saudi Arabia, and Trump International Golf Course and Hotel in Ada, Oman's most luxurious beach master community. When I first read this, I'm like, wait, hold on. You're saying it's the first international hotel and tower in the Middle East, but then you have all this other stuff? I'm like, what? I'm confused. That all being said, I actually went and looked at the press release by Dar Global itself. Let me tell you what's a part of this club here. There's going to be a private members-only club in this new facility in Dubai. And guess what the private members-only club is called? It's called The Trump. You heard me right. This new big hotel tower thing that Donald Trump is doing is going to be called The Trump. Imagine if Biden had done that. Oh my God. Oh my God. If a Democrat did 1% of what Trump does every day, they'd be laughed out of politics. Donald Trump can do it because all of his followers literally just worship him no matter what he does. No matter what he does. So, like, occupying 80 floors at 350 M, 350, I don't know what the M stands, meters. Trump International Tower in Dubai presents lavish hospitality offerings comprising exquisite rooms and suites, private lounges, personalized service, and world-class amenities for guests. I'm not even looking at the comments, but I want to see what y'all have. Meme coin come to pay. See, here's the thing. Just imagine MAGA's crushing hard on you. Well, thank you. I'm glad that people crush on me. But also, like, yeah, what's wrong with corruption, huh? LMAO, right? Right? Just imagine if this was a Democrat. They'd be like, oh, this is so tone deaf. Oh, like, how do people who are working class folks think that Donald Trump actually cares about you? He didn't go to the Middle East to secure economic liberation for you. No, he went to the Middle East to profit himself. That's what he does. This is a side note. Why do so many people have blind trust and blind faith in someone like Trump? Why? 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 Why do you have blind faith and trust in Trump when over and over and over and over and over he does actions that only benefit himself and his wealthy billionaires? Why? Why do they do that over and over? Because they were raised as a part of the red team. They live and breathe and purchase all the merchandise for the red team, so they're just on the red team. Free yourself from the dichotomy of being a part of a team and just think critically for yourself. Think critically for yourself and actually look at the facts at hand and come to your own conclusions. Because he's very transparent and he's saving our country. He's very transparent with what? His specific corruption? He's opening up a private members-only club. The current president of the United States is doing business, constant amounts of business with foreign countries. With foreign countries. He didn't divest his businesses when he went in. He's doing all of this investment into big, lavish, luxury hospitality resorts. Imagine if Kamala Harris had done that. You know what the right wing would say? They'd be like, oh, she doesn't care about the working class. She doesn't care about the plights of middle class people. And look, they would be right if they made those kinds of things. Then it's them, and it's like, oh, he obviously cares. They think that you're dumb. And you're proving them right if you continue to follow Trump. You're too fixated on the red versus blue. Just look at the facts. Yeah, and I'm looking at the facts here. It's corruption. It wouldn't matter who it is. It's corruption. So, that all being said, looking at this is what the Trump Tower in Dubai, the project, has been proposed to look like. This is what it's been proposed to look like. It's a beautiful tower. It's a beautiful tower, one of the best towers, a gorgeous tower, one of the best towers you've ever seen. And like, just looking at this, there's going to be a Trump members only club. This is what Donald Trump's priorities are. He doesn't care about you, low-income person in red state that constantly buys 47 hats of his. He doesn't care about you. He doesn't care about anyone but himself. He doesn't. He is an elitist person who's literally transformed our presidency into being, oh, I am for sale to the highest bidder. If this was a Democrat, it'd be just as much of a problem. It would be just as much of a problem. Like, do better. But stop blaming the base and putting them down. Are you talking about me? So, I'm specifically pointing all of this out because the corruption here is just so obvious. It's so obvious. We deserve better as Americans than to have our president focused on delivering for himself. We deserve people who actually want to help us, who actually want to lower the cost of healthcare, who actually want to stop the gun violence epidemic, who want to actually raise money for infrastructure. We deserve people who actually care, not someone that goes to foreign countries, talks about his own interests, won't divest his own businesses, who actually cares about trying to uphold the rule of law and the Constitution. It just frustrates me. The reason why America can't have nice things is because there's a subsection of the population that constantly lick the boots for Trump, for wealthy people. They think that you're dumb. Don't be used. Don't be used by anyone for any sort of political means. What do I mean by that? Don't just be a cog in a machine for a political party. Doesn't matter if it's Republican or Democrat. Don't. Think critically for yourself. Think critically for yourself. I'll tell you a good group that does that, progressive Democrats. You know why? Because guess what? When we see something that Democrats do, like the mainstream liberal part, they were like, ooh, yeah, honey, don't do that. We see stuff the Republicans do and they're like, ooh, honey, don't do that. To the credit of many independents, they also are very much that way. Think critically for yourself when you look at the corruption. Now, if you want to look at this and say that it's not corruption, fine. I think you're absurd. But I guarantee that those people who would then say that, if it was a party, if it was someone from the opposite political party, they would say it's massive corruption. What that shows is that you're not thinking critically for yourself. Anyway, I've been all over the place today. I need to take a break. And I appreciate every single one of you. Shout out to my amazing moderators in here. Y'all are incredible. Where is his bigly beautiful healthcare bill? Right? Someone says no free speech on here or what? You're allowed to speak, honey. Someone is saying, what? I don't even know what that's supposed to mean. So, was this anyone's first time here? We appreciate you, Scott. Did I make sense today? Or was I just kind of all over the place? Because today I felt very, very ineloquent. And sometimes I get insecure about how I don't feel like I'm performing or like talking very well. No, but I sleep too much. First time here. Oh, well, welcome, Mojave Red. You are awesome. Oh, thank you. Thanks for all you do. Aw. Yes, made sense. Okay, cool. Sometimes I get in my head. So, yeah. I appreciate every single one of you. Yes, ignorance gets deleted. Yes. My ADHD kept up just fine. Okay, awesome. Someone said you said a lot of stuff that doesn't make sense. Well, I'll probably be better next time in that case. So anyway, I love all of you. First time here and your show sucks. Oh, well, you know, it's okay. It's okay. You can disagree. You can disagree. You're just wrong. Anyway, I love all of you so much. I appreciate every single one of you. Delete the show, says tough luck. Oh, the same person that said it sucks says delete it. Yeah, I don't know about that. Someone said wake up from the Matrix. I literally call it what? I literally called for you to think critically for yourself and not succumb to was that towards me or someone else? Anyway, I appreciate every single one of you. Shout out to my amazing moderators in here and good friends. Ginger Monster, MF Hendo, you're awesome. Cat Mommy, y'all, you're awesome. So, you're awesome. I appreciate every single one of you. Ellie, Akicha, Kate, Ilisa, y'all are awesome. Jenny, Joanna Tech. I couldn't do this without my mods. And y'all are also incredible. Cat Mommy, thank you. Appreciate you. Also, I'm going to be planning on pumping out a lot more content today. So if you are looking for that, then just let me know. Now, just remember that you are beautiful. You are loved. You are valid. You are strong. And you are fierce. Don't let anyone or anything ever dim your shine. I love all of you so much. Cherie, Ilisa, Ellie, Ginger Monster, MF Hendo, Kantisa. I love all of you. Akicha, Kate, Joanna Tech. Oh, another Scott Johnson in here. Oh, that's fun. Anyway, I love you all so much. Bye.